So, Viral Bhai, good afternoon and thank you so much for doing this with us. A Nayanta conversation is a conversation where we speak to someone who is an exemplary leader in his or her field and we try to decode their excellence. Thank you for sparing your time. I know it's a very, very busy calendar.
My pleasure.
And Raj and I are thrilled to do this with you. Could we begin by just taking us through your early childhood and your journey up to a point where you got into counseling students?
Yeah, so basically, schooling was at the Cathedral School. Had the most marvelous 5 years out there. As a matter of fact, that led me to write a book on the cathedral's history. And the 150th year in 2010, we published the 150th year anniversary of Cathedral. We published a book which you can see in front of you, The Undefiled Heritage. And it talks about the history of the school of last 150 years. That's a passion for the school. Finished schooling, those times it was somewhere in 1975. One didn't know what to do. So my father had studied in England. He said, why don't you go and do your schooling in England? So that time we had the A-levels, which was there immediately after your... And I was the last batch of the ISC. ISC was the precursor to the new ISC 12 and ICSE. I was the last batch of ISC 12, which again was descended from the senior Cambridge. Finished ISC, did my A-levels in England. Then again, my father said, go to America. That's where the place is to study for the future, because he had done his college in England and in America. That time you listen to your father. You had nobody else to guide you. So went off to America, did my engineering degree from Cornell, finished in Cornell in 1981. That time, obviously, you were quite mesmerized with the finance world. So I worked with Manufacturers Hanover Trust Bank for 2 years, which is now defunct, bought over by JP Morgan, Manny Hanny. Worked there for 2 years. Always wanted to come back to India. Came back to India in the early 80s. I worked with a friend of ours who was in the trading of rubber parts for the automotive industry. Worked there for 7-8 years, but that itch was always there to get into manufacturing, because having been an engineer, and that time in 80s and 90s in India, engineering or manufacturing was the thing to be in, So we started a super alloys plant in the late 80s. Did very well for the first 10 years. Then because of Chinese competition, we started struggling. We had a strike at our plant. And around 98, 99, we closed down the plant. And then I was always wondering, what should I do? But while I was doing my work in the rubber business and in the manufacturing business, I used to help students, because that time going abroad was not that popular. It was very expensive. Foreign exchange was not available. So I started helping a couple of students every year from early 80s, friends, relatives. As a matter of fact, the first 2 students I sent was Fareed Zakaria, who's now on CNN, and his brother Arshad Zakaria. But that time there was no data available how to go about doing your whole application. So I used to do this as a hobby. Hobby continued till we closed down the plant. And then I decided, now enough of manufacturing, let me do what I really enjoy. So I got a second chance, a second career, if I may say so, where I converted a passion into a profession. So around 2003, 2004, I started Viral Doshi Associates. Not to send children abroad. Studying abroad has become a very fashionable thing. It was more to, I found there was a tremendous gap of helping children to identify careers and then mentor them through this process so they achieve the right career objectives at the end of the day. So around 2003, I started Viral Doshi Associates, primarily to focus on career guidance, career counseling and mentoring. And by the way, one of the things was also to send children overseas. But I guess going overseas has become a big thing in the last 20 years because India opened up, foreign exchange was freely available. Internet became a level playing field. So that overseas became a big factor in the whole game at the end of the day. But primarily, my passion and 80% of my work is still devoted to doing career counseling, career mentoring, and helping children to achieve their career paths at the end of the day. So it's been a very interesting journey. It's a second career. And so I'm very glad I had an opportunity. Not many people get a chance to do a second career. This was my opportunity to do a second career. And I'm happy that I converted a passion into a profession, if I may say so.
No, absolutely. And like they say, lucky is the person who can convert their profession, their passion into their profession. But as you went through this, and as you were thinking about how, what's the right advice to give to students and to parents, and then it seems like college admission counseling came a little bit later in the program, but I'm assuming the world has changed as well. The parents of 20 years ago and how they thought about the kids, and today where it feels like from the first grades, parents are trying to build resumes for the kids, etc. So, what changes have you seen just in terms of the set of people that you're dealing with, and how has that been either interesting or challenging for you?
I think let's step back and understand, when we were in school, what are the choices you had? You had very limited choices. You either did commerce, arts, or
engineering,
science.
medicine, chartered
And
accountancy.
you were compartmentalized. If you were good in studies, you either engineering, law, CA, or medicine. You had no other choice. My father was an engineer. He made me an engineer. I had nothing to even discuss or think about.
Right.
And that's what perhaps triggered my interest to do career counseling for students, because if I had somebody to guide me, look here, you can do history also and do well, you can do English and also do well. Nobody was guiding me. Because you were good in studies, you automatically just fell into the engineering bracket and did engineering at the end of the day. So I think what has changed is the choices have become tremendous for parents today and for students today. As a result, there is more confusion. When you have myriad of choices, both in terms of careers, colleges. So I think today's parents, I think most important is to demystify the options that they have in front of them. Earlier years, you didn't have to think about, you just had to do 4 careers or 5 careers. But now, because the choices are so huge, I think it comes down to identifying the right career path for a child. And typically, when students come to meet me, typically in high school, I always tell them, look here, let's do 4 things to make a right career choice. So first and foremost, when they're in grade 9, 10, 11, I make them do what is called a psychometric test. It's a test in which we analyze a child's strengths and weaknesses, his interests, and his aptitude. And we merge all 3 together to see what is the best career option for you. The next step, I tell them, why don't you read more about the careers that we shortlist for you? Let's say law comes up as a career option, or digital marketing. Read more about it. Then I say, let's speak to professionals in fields that you want to make a career in. You want to make a career in architecture? Go and speak to 3 architects. You'll get a much better perspective as to what that career is all about. And the most important is job shadowing. Go and spend a day or 2, not to do internship. Go and spend a day or 2 and see what they do. And I tell them, if you do all these 4 things, believe me, you'll have a very good perspective as what is the right option for you. And once you know what is the right option for you, then we can work out which countries to go to and how to plan your next 4 years in school. So first thing is identifying the right career track. And that was not being done in India at all. Everything was happening by default. It's a big change, if I may say so. The choices are tremendous. Confusion is tremendous. So you become a demystifier. You demystify this whole process for the parents and children by following these 4 steps. And once you identify the career option for their child, believe me, things go much more smoothly. I should identify which countries to go to, which college to look at, and how to plan your next 4 years in high school. So you have a good platform to go to a good college for a career of your choice.
So when a student comes to you, what are you trying to assess in that student? I mean, you have the psychometric and you have this process.
True. But I think in the field of counseling, you have to get to know the student very well. I think you have to give that confidence in him that you are his friend, And I always tell people, there's one advice I would give any counselor also. If you want to be a successful counselor, treat your student like your own son or your own daughter. When you treat your student like your own child, you give the best advice possible. So first you have to identify what his strengths and weaknesses are. You have to identify what his career ambitions are. Then go through the career paths. And once you assess that, he automatically starts getting to know you better. He knows this guy is a friend of mine. He's going to give me the proper advice. And I've always seen with students, if you plan out a career map for them, and if you give a structured program, most of them achieve, even students are average to below average, I've seen doing very well when you have a career map mapped out for them for 4 years in high school. When you leave everything open-ended, that's when the challenges arise. And this is what was not being done. Nobody is giving a career map to a child, How do you plan each year in school? And if you have a structured program, believe me, it becomes very successful.
And through this, do you also end up spending time with parents? Because hypothetically, say you find a student who loves writing, wants to become a writer, but this child might be 15 years old, and you have the parents saying, well, that's a good hobby to have, but I don't know if this is a good career. You're good in academics, and so why don't you go and study engineering? How do you thread that needle?
Very good question, if I may say so. And if I just step back for 2 minutes, over the years in India, I have seen in the urban cities where people have more exposure to education, they've studied abroad, they're allowing their children to explore other careers now in the last 10, 15 years. Like you or somebody like him who studied abroad, knows what the value of a liberal arts education would be or pure sciences, will allow your child to do it. But still in the second, third tier cities which have come of age today, they have a lot of money, they still compartmentalize. If you're good in studies, you're good in writing, you have to follow a conventional path. In fact, say students from Indore or from Amravati, brilliant children, parents are affluent, can send their child to any college they want, but they've still not come out of the compartmentalized box of doing conventional careers. And that's the reason for that. Honestly speaking, all these liberal arts colleges would not have survived 20 years ago in India. Think of it, why? Because in India, the biggest objective of any parent was security. And security came through the best education. Security came through engineering, law, CA, medicine. The first question, if you do a BA in history, what will you do? Now, we were 30, 40 years behind America. Yes. Now, with rising affluency, all these careers have a path in India also. So, what has happened? The urban parents today are amenable to doing what you just said. But if I go to second, third, fourth tier city, which today makes up a majority of my client base, they're still not amenable to doing this. They will still say follow conventional careers because they have not come of it. They are 20 years behind urban cities. So, it's very interesting sociological, socio-economic things which have taken place. Maybe 20 years ago, we were 30 years behind America, what they used to do there for liberal arts. Now, the urban cities, Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, Calcutta will allow you to do that. But God forbid, if you go to any second, third tier city, it's still very challenging to convince a parent. But again, they're looking at security. And for them, security comes through conventional careers, which I think it'll take time.
Absolutely.
Another 15, 20 years, you see also second, third tier cities, parents and students wanting to do the liberal arts route path. And the biggest confusion in India today is liberal arts. I said liberal arts is not humanities. Liberal arts, anything which is a non-professional degree is liberal arts. Liberal arts is a combination of humanities and pure sciences. And that's something that parents have not been educated. For them, I tell them, look here, typically you have what is called a conventional path or a professional degree like engineering, law, CA, or medicine. But liberal arts is a good alternative where you study humanities and pure sciences. I tell them, do you know physics is liberal arts? Chemistry is liberal arts? Oh, we didn't know that. Because there's lack of awareness of liberal arts education in this country because they always link liberal arts with humanities. And that's where I think a big sort of initiative needs to be taken, like your college, for example, where we popularize the importance of liberal arts. And I think the biggest challenge when I tell anybody to do something in liberal arts, Mr. Doshi, what job will I get? So I tell them, look here, when you're coming for an undergraduate degree, don't worry about the job. Do what you enjoy. Do what you're passionate about. Eventually, it's your postgraduate degree which will get you the job. So that's why I'm a big fan of giving examples. I love to give examples because I think for any child, they love role models. And I would say, look at, Anand Mahindra of Mahindra, he's done a BA in film studies. Today he's managing a tractor company. Or Jack Ma, who's running Alibaba, is a BA in English. Or Mr. Sundar Pichai, who runs Google, he's a bachelor's in metallurgical engineering. But because all of them did something which they enjoyed, they excelled. And because they excelled, they all ended up doing their MBA from top business schools. Mr. Mahindra went to Harvard, Sundar Pichai went to Wharton, and Jack Ma went to the top business school in China. So I think that awareness needs to be created. And I feel to popularize liberal arts education in this country, we require role models of people who have done a liberal arts curriculum and have been successful afterwards. So I think that will be a big winner at the end of the day.
I think the role models exist. We haven't always exposed students to them.
True.
I mean, Anand Mahindra is just one example, but even I think some of the new startups,
absolutely,
they're coming from liberal arts backgrounds.
Absolutely.
You have.
As a matter of fact, if you go back and read the biography of Steve Jobs, he always says we love liberal arts students, humanities students in our company because they give a different perspective of designing your products at the end of the day. So I think we haven't really realized the value of liberal arts because liberal arts in India was never popular because it never got you a job. And sadly, if you're not good in studies, you did humanities in India earlier days, isn't it? Or you wanted to not do engineering, you would do BS. It was never regarded very well. But now we have come of the age where both humanities and sciences lead to great job prospects because eventually children or parents should look at the postgraduate degree as the ultimate aim. Whatever they do, aim for a postgraduate degree which is good for you and do what you enjoy at undergraduate. That's a message I would tell anybody. Do what you enjoy.
And it seems like it requires a evolution all around. You mentioned students, you mentioned parents, but at some point the employers as well. I think there is a mindset, my guess is today, particularly in several HR departments, that, if they're looking for a particular role, you would want them to come from, the more technical, more professional schools. I keep citing this example that, when I joined, I used to be an investment banker, back in the day. And when I worked at Goldman Sachs, there were my peers who were undergrads, as you mentioned, in English and Asian studies and art history, who ended up running departments, becoming incredibly successful investment bankers. But that also, needed the employer to recognize, that the smart individual can come from anywhere. It just needs the foundation, the way of thinking, and how you can apply yourself. And therefore, it does need, some of the employers in India and the HR departments and owners of businesses to say that, it doesn't necessarily mean that technical skills you can learn on the job. And do you see that change happening at all?
It'll take one generation. I think when you have liberal arts students who go and work in the workforce and rise up the corporate ladder, they'll appreciate taking more liberal arts students. So it's not going to be easy. I think it's taken, even in America and in England, it took some time before they really started accepting liberal arts students. But I think we are about 15, 20 years behind that. When you see the best first cohort of your college, any other colleges, students going out and doing well in investment banking or working for Infosys, they will become the leaders in those fields, and they will see, look here, hiring liberal arts students is very helpful, and they will instruct the HR department, look here, we should change our product mix and get more liberal arts students. But I think students are getting employed right now. A lot of colleges like Ashoka, Kriya are doing a very good outreach work with companies, convincing them why these students are good. And when they take the students and they say, okay, give us feedback after 1 year, and they give them positive feedbacks, college companies also said, we took a good decision, But I think it's going to take time. Another 15, 20 years, once we have leaders from liberal arts. Because how many liberal arts colleges are there truly in this country, isn't it? You've got Ashoka, Kriya, you are starting one right now. How many are truly there? Ahmedabad universities, where have the students, they're not even reached middle tier jobs right now. So as they go into senior positions, they will also want to take liberal arts students because they've been successful. And they see the same thing happening with liberal arts students also.
So it does take that generation.
So the flip side, of course, is that a lot of the skills which employers are talking about, they're talking about critical thinking, they're talking about collaboration, they're talking about the ability to think, write, communicate clearly. These are all very strong in a good liberal arts college. And I think if we can supplement that and make that visible to employers, it begins to move.
So true.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'll tell you, if I have to suggest to any parent today, there's a lovely book written by Joseph Aoun. He's the president of Northeastern University. It's called Robot Proof. That how do we prepare today's child for tomorrow's future? And he's called a new one called humanics. What is humanics? That a child of tomorrow should be embracing data literacy, learning how data is processed, technology literacy, how machines work, and human literacy, which combines humanities subjects, combines design and communication. If a person can embrace all these 5 features, he'll be ready for the future of tomorrow, where AI and robots are going to play a very key role in how we work. So exactly coming back to you, that's where liberal arts education can be very helpful. But it's not easy to convince Indian parents on liberal arts. As I said, if you try and talk to people in second, third tier cities, it's much more challenging. But I think once they see some successful role models, see, we have to create successful role models. I think you have to sell role models who have done liberal arts and done well. That's the biggest thing that any university can do. And as far as companies are concerned, they should also have role models of people who have come in and the management is convinced that these people have done very well. So it's about a joint collaboration. And I think it's a joint collaboration partnership between colleges and
I just love what you said in the book, because, we are talking about cultural literacy and technical literacy, and it just kind of aligns very well. One interesting observation I have is that I look at my batch, people who went to IITs in the 80s, barely 3 of them are educating their children in the IITs in India. So a generation which went to India's top institutes in the 80s, most of the kids are going abroad.
There's a reason for that.
And the variety, so that's I think
very
would
good
be
reason for that.
Explore.
First and foremost, it's getting impossible to get into IIT. Even if I want to go to IIT, I drop by 1 mark, I go from IIT Bombay to IIT Guwahati. I want to do metallurgical engineering, I'll end up doing electrical engineering or something that I never wanted to do. And also, nobody wants to hack this whole 2 years process of sitting for the entrance exams.
That's, I think,
also one more reason, if you look at all your IIT colleagues, most of them have done very well because they're always smart, they've done very well in life, they're affluent now. So then they think, look here, why should I put my child through this 2-year rigor when I can afford to send him abroad to an equally good college? But if I had a choice today, if anybody can get into IIT, I would bow down to him. For me, IIT is supreme. I would even put it above an MIT or a Stanford. The type of students who have gone to IIT for me are the best and the brightest. So I would not discount IIT at all. So when a lot of children come to me and I say, look here, son, why are you looking at going abroad? You have the potential to go to IIT. Why don't you try it? And they try it out and they go to IIT and they come and thank me. The best decision you made us do, because the whole networking at IIT just raises your bar at the end of the day. So, but when you have, now let me tell you why this is also happening. Today in India, in 1980, about 2010, there were only 80 IB schools. Today there are close to 170 IB schools. There were about 100 A-level schools, international curriculum. There are 200 today. With the increase in international schools, competition becoming so difficult in India, and affluency increasing, internet become a level playing field, everybody wants to go abroad. And today it's not the urban cities. You're talking about second, third, fourth tier cities who are looking at going abroad today because it's a much easier pathway. But coming back to your question, very rarely have I seen any of the IIT colleagues of yours, parents would keep their children back in India.
Yeah, because
there are exceptions because they don't want to go through the whole process.
Right.
And there's no guarantee where you're going to get in. So it's much easier to go abroad. But I must a little bit deviate from that. You're right for engineering and for STEM careers. But for humanities and commerce, people are looking at keeping them back out. You have a lot of IIT students who have sent their children to Ashoka, to Kriya, to Ahmedabad University.
My son went to Ashoka.
So there you are.
And on that, what is driving that? My sense is the one thing that has changed dramatically even in the last 15, 20 years is we are probably living in a much more uncertain world, just given the geopolitical uncertainty, the technological uncertainty. Every day you read that AI is going to change the job market and most of the traditional jobs, including traditional path of going to the US, studying computer science, getting a software engineering job. That entire route now, which is the most popular route, might become obsolete or increasingly difficult. So based on those uncertainties, do you think students are evaluating and parents are evaluating things differently, and are you guiding them in a different direction in terms of how to think of the careers in the next 10, 15, 20 years?
Of course. I mean, first and foremost, whenever anybody comes to me, my first reaction, why not India? Then the whole reaction, Mr. Doshi, you're saying India, where do I get in? There are limited colleges out here. And it's a funneling effect. Number of high schools in the last 20 years have gone up by 300%. How many new colleges can you name?
That's true.
8, 10 on a handful. Yeah. You can't on a handful. So that's where the challenge arises. So even if you want to stay back in India, the choices are limited. For example, you do STEM degree, getting into IIT or a BITS is so difficult. So obviously by default, you're going abroad. For humanities, you've got Ashoka, which has become very competitive. Kriya has become competitive. You all are starting. Ahmedabad. How many colleges are there which are good? So when students are graduating, by default, they're looking at going abroad. But still, I would say out of the 100 students who go abroad, 70 may go to USA. But still the preference is USA because of flexibility, the research opportunities, the diversity, a world-class faculty. But staying back in India is more of a backup. If I don't get in, I'll stay back out here. But changing their mindset, I'm trying to do a lot on people who are doing liberal arts or business. I said, honestly, stay back out here. For STEM or engineering degrees, besides the Plaksha, no other good university has come up which is private and which should take students besides the entrance exam.
Right.
So I think we have a long way to go. I think the biggest thrust we require is to get more quality higher education universities up in India. I think the tremendous demand for that because, at the end of the day, the number of students graduating from high school, they don't have very limited options. Look at the stress levels to study for IIT today.
Absolutely.
You hear of all these stories, people committing suicide and you go to quota.
4 years preparation.
4 years preparation. People are starting in 8th grade. I met somebody in 9th grade. I'm doing classes with Alan for the last 1 year.
They're burnt out by the time they
correct.
So I'm just picking up. So one question is this word fit. One is you advise a student, but then there is a question of a fit. What is the right college for the particular student? And you having seen so many different universities, are there some judgments you make between different reputed colleges for a specific?
Most important is educating parents today, not the student, for the right fit. Because parents are trying to fulfill their own ambitions in their own child. They couldn't get to MIT, they want their child to apply to MIT. They couldn't get to Stanford, they want their child to go to Stanford. So I think first we need to educate the parents. Look here, go to a college where your child will be happy. And when I say fit, it's not fit necessarily, it's happiness. When you go to a college which is a happy school, you'll always blossom. And if you blossom, you can always go to a good postgraduate degree. And year after year, I've been telling parents, it's your postgraduate degree which counts, it's not your undergraduate degree. So right fit is a happy school. And eventually, when you do a psychometric test with a student, you talk to him, you meet him, you assess his strengths and weaknesses, his family background, you can understand which is a good fit for a college. And whether to stay in India or abroad, then you can decide which is the best option for them. But what happens with all these international curriculums coming in India, it's very difficult to convince a child to stay back in India. And I just had a discussion this morning. The child wants to stay back in India, but the school which she's studying in, they look down upon her. Oh, your parents can't afford to send you abroad. You must be dumb. That's why you're staying back in India. It is so sad. This has to change. This image has to change,
Absolutely.
So I think we have to go on a complete campaign where we realize I would say, initiate the whole marketing of Indian colleges, the liberal arts education, but there's quality education here available also. But it's looked down upon, sadly, by a lot of people that you're staying back in India. Oh, you're a failure. You couldn't go abroad. That's why you stayed back in India. That has to change.
So, it's very interesting. My son went to Ashoka and then he is doing a PhD at the top international. What do you think about that route? People doing it at undergraduate in India and then looking at a research-oriented degree abroad.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of that.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I call it students staying back here. I said, let's stay back for 3 years here. We'll plan your 3 years so beautifully with summer internships, summer schools, online courses, research, extracurricular activities. You have a much better resume than a child who's gone abroad. Spend 3 years here, then do a 1-year master's in UK. For that 16 years of education, sometimes you require that.
You have 4 years also now.
4 years now, it started, absolutely. So if you do 4 years here, then go abroad for your postgraduate degree. And I give always good examples. Look at Silicon Valley. You can't find a single Indian who did his undergrad degree in America and became successful. They're all homegrown, went for a postgrad degree there. So I'm a big fan of that. Do undergraduate here, 1-year master's in UK and an MBA from US if you want to go the route back. But I'm doing something very interesting also. A lot of students want to go abroad because of whatever factors. I'm bringing them back to India for the MBA. To IIM.
That's the trend I've seen.
Yeah, because IIMs now allow you to apply with a GMAT exam, not requiring a CAT. So it's a reverse migration. You should be earlier going abroad. I say if India is the most happening place today. So I'm a big fan of telling students if India is the most happening place, you must at least do 1 degree in India. Ideally undergraduate and then do a postgrad degree abroad. Or do an undergraduate degree abroad, come back for a postgrad degree here. Because today in the future, next 30, 40 years are India's years. And also it's very interesting, if you talk to employers, and they have a choice between a student who studied abroad and studied in India, they much rather prefer the Indian student. And the reason is, Mr. Doshi, they don't have attitude. All these people come from abroad, they have a bit of attitude. Oh, what do the Indians know about it? How to work in a company? We have worked with Goldman Sachs in New York or McKinsey in New York. We know much more. So that's why also I'm a big fan. Say for undergraduate degree in India, if you can get in. But the choices are so limited. That's where the challenge arises.
We will try to expand those choices.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure.
Just on that line, if you look at colleges like Ashoka, like Kriya, and now Nayanta, what advice would you have to parents who are looking at these colleges? How should they think about these colleges?
You have to look at things a little differently. You don't look at that you're staying back in India, you're looking at a quality education, which has been delivered the best on par with any American education. So if your child is a person who doesn't want to do a STEM or engineering degree, then these options are fabulous out here. And I would say, so that's why one of the things, whenever I was talking to Ashish, they were setting up Ashoka. I said, Ashish, you must start a summer program. The summer program became absolute winner. They got the first taste of what a liberal education.
Sampling the quality.
Sampling the quality. The sampling became a winner. And then Ashoka has more students applying for the summer program than they have sometimes for undergraduate studies. So Kriya, Flame, Ashoka. So even something like your Nayanta, if it starts a summer program, that's when parents realize we're going to get a quality education here. And that's what made Ashoka a winner. Because of the fact they started a summer program, children would taste it, they would experience it and come back home and say, Mom, I really enjoyed this program. I would love to study out here. So then parents, okay, let's take a chance and let's apply to Ashoka. So now, even if they don't go to Ashoka, a large majority are applying to Ashoka. And then 30% get converted to come to Ashoka because of the summer program. But I think for them, seeing is believing. So far, the role models which have come out from liberal arts in India are few and far. So once that grows the next 5-10 years, I see a tremendous surge in that education also. But we will give it some time. We are still a little bit behind in liberal arts education. But the time has come for us to get into it because I think we can deliver a quality education. That's why a lot of people ask me, why are not foreign universities coming into India? I say, don't need to. We have quality teachers out here. If we have the right setup, the right funding, we can set up world-class universities. In a cases for Nayanta, Kriya, Ashoka. So you don't require foreign universities. So I think as more and more universities come up here, parents will be keen to keep their children back in India. As a matter of fact, parents ask me, Mr. Doshi, we want to keep them back. What is the choice that we have? So now you are coming up, Geo is coming up. So over a course of time, a lot of colleges will come up, but it's going to take a much longer time for us to achieve that success with liberal arts education. But it will come. Because of Ashoka and Kriya being successful, I think that will spill over to you also because they will understand the quality of liberal arts education.
And the other element that obviously makes a great university, spoken about students and the courses they offer, is the teachers, the professors themselves.
So true.
And at least what we are witnessing is an increasing trend of truly world-class faculty members who are willing to now looking at coming back to India. Have you had an interaction with anyone who, faculty members who have come and spoken to you about, look, what is it like to teach Indian students and working in India?
Oh, they love it. They love it. And if you look at a good case example is Ashoka. How many of them have come back from America and England and are teaching? They're loving it. because they have the same opportunity, they're being paid well, research opportunities are great for them. The student quality is
So in
superb.
some sense, you're truly getting a world-class education. These are the same faculty members
That's
who would have
exactly
been
what I would
teaching
tell
you
parents
overseas.
today. Are
Right.
getting a world-class education in India at 1/5 the cost. Look at the cost factor today. Go abroad, $100,000 to America, $70,000 to UK. So getting quality education, 1/5 the cost with the world-class faculty. I think what parents will look at eventually is, will my child get a job? When he applies for postgraduate studies abroad, will he have the same value as an IIT engineer? So these are things we need to demystify.
That's right.
And once you have role models, you give them assurance, okay, we have tied up with these colleges. That's what a lot of colleges have done. They've tied up with universities abroad for a semester abroad or a year abroad or even for a master's degree at the end of the day. And these are, if parents are reassured on that front and they're getting a quality education here, believe me, more and more will start looking at India as a very serious option. But today, why did Plaksha become so popular? Because there's no other engineering college like them, private sector, who doesn't subscribe to the JEE and admit students based on the overall profile of the child. So that's where I would say, I think properly marketed and properly nurtured through role models, through sustained advertising campaigns, to interviews, I think people will start understanding the value of liberal arts education in this country.
What Raj said about faculty is very true. We are getting applications today from SOAS, faculty who've done PhDs in SOAS, faculty who've done PhDs in Cornell, faculty who've done PhDs in Duke.
So nice.
And they do want to come back and kind of contribute to India. As I'm just kind of building on this, through your journey, what are those moments of joy that you get when working with a student?
Very interesting. When I started in 1981, when a parent comes back, that same child who's become a parent today comes back to his child, that is a tremendous sense of satisfaction after another generation. And I know I take inspiration from a lovely movie, which I don't think you must have watched also. It's called Goodbye, Mr. Chips.
Yeah.
It's a very popular movie, 1939 movie. Mr. Chips is a housemaster in an English boarding school. And he's a very full of wisdom, but very kind and very heartwarming with the children out there. And that was my role model there. One day, if I had to work with children, you have to be kind. You have to teach any child like your own, treat any student like your own child. And if you give them that warmth and that affection, you can get the best out of them and give them a proper guidance path. You can go ahead with them. So I think answering your question, when students who became parents bring their children back to me, satisfaction when one sibling comes, other sibling comes, you've done a good job with the sibling. That gives you tremendous satisfaction, I would say. And also when you carve out a path for them and they come back and thank you, look here, you carved a tremendous path for us. Or some students say, Mr. Doshi, made us stay back in India. Today we've done better than my students. Our friends have gone abroad. That gives you tremendous satisfaction, I would say.
So it is very similar to the satisfaction of a teacher, really.
Absolutely.
It's like,
yes.
I think a teacher or somebody who's really lighting up a path for
Absolutely.
someone else. So, this interview, I think, spans two aspects. One is the counseling, and the second is, I think, you are in your own right somebody who has a vision for higher education in India. So, looking forward for the next 25 years, what would your vision be for higher education in India?
I think get more universities to open up out here. We have to open up more colleges, more universities, and there has to be a partnership between the government and the private sector to set up more universities. What you have done is a drop in the ocean.
Right.
How many people can you accommodate? Maybe 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. What about the balance? That's where the big challenge arises. I think India has tremendous opportunities for setting up higher education institutes, and this is what we have to focus on, getting quality ones. And believe me, if you set up quality, like when ISB began, nobody would go to ISB because IIMs were but they've developed a good reputation. When IITs began, nobody would go to IIT because BHU was the best engineering college. So I think it's a question of time. I think once you see 3 or 4 good liberal arts colleges creating good students, eventually, and if you get both government and corporates to work together, I think the call of the hour is setting up more universities. And the government should really put a task force together to see how do we do that. Because corporates today have the money. They want to support education. And if they're given a framework on how to do it, believe me, a lot more will come forward and do it. And you can see it today. I mean, you have, like Lalbhai is there with Ahmedabad University today. So all these big corporates are supporting universities in their own right. So I think if we can channelize that together, I think that will be a winner, I would say.
I think that's a great policy suggestion. I'd like to close this conversation with final words from you. I think we've learned from this conversation, I think both of us, on multiple dimensions. So it's been a pleasure. But as somebody who many people look up to, if I were to ask you for some parting words of wisdom for three constituents, the parents, the students, and many counselors for whom you remain a pioneer.
I think let's start with the students first. I think for them, one piece of advice is three things. One, be determined, be adaptable. The world is changing very rapidly, and be humble. I've seen students who have become very arrogant when they get success comes to them, and that leads to the fall. So I would say three things: determination, adaptability, and humility will always give you success at the end of the day. For parents, a sincere advice: don't impose your desires on your own child. Let your child blossom in whatever he or she feels like doing, and eventually look at your postgraduate degree as the ultimate aim, not as an undergraduate degree. Allow your child to blossom. Don't impose compartmentalized careers that we used to do 20, 30 years ago. And to a counselor, I would say you should try and identify, mentor, and guide the students for the optimal career path, but treat each client like your own child. When that happens, you'll be a successful counselor.
So treat a student
Wonderful.
like your child. I think that's something that I would take away with me. Wonderful conversation.
Thank
you
you
so
Thank
much.
you.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you
Sir,
so
it's been
much.
an absolute honor and a
My
pleasure.
pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.